2017. Kaunas. Police officers receive a phone call. On the other side, a frantic young woman telling them that her aunt, at the respectable age of 86, has gone missing. Of course, it's just a couple of days, and her aunt did live alone, so she might just be somewhere wandering. But the aunt didn't pick up her phone, and that was a sign that something was off. Police officers take down notes. Maybe the aunt is in a hospital. At her age, even a small fall at home could lead to major health issues. The woman on the other side tells more, and this starts to feel somehow off to the experienced officers. The beloved aunt's cat, that was taken care of like a king, was locked in another room without food or his things. Why would the aunt lock the cat in that room? Even if the ambulance came, why lock the cat in a room at all? This felt deliberate, but for the like of her, the niece could not think of a reason why her aunt would do something like this. Why indeed, thought the police officers. One of them was immediately sent to check all the hospital records. But there was a gut feeling she won't be in any of health facilities. This smells like foul play. On their way to the crime scene, the officers had a lot of their mind. First of all, this wasn't some lonely house in the middle of the woods. The old woman disappeared from her apartment, with neighbors and people rushing past outside. Second, there was something that the niece told that wasn't sitting right with them. The doors were locked. There was no sign of a break-in, no forced entry, no struggle marks. Apart from the cat and a few messy things left around the apartment, it's like the aunt simply disappeared. As the officers arrived, the niece was walking around the outside, waiting for them. Visibly stressed out, she ran to them and nearly screamed out, "There are no towels in the bath." What? The police officers were a bit taken back. Apparently, there were 2 big towels in the bath, and now they simply disappeared. Disappeared with the aunt. The officers didn't want to tell the niece, but there were only a few cases when towels disappear, and it wasn't looking good. As the officers walked around the apartment, it really was the case. No break-in signs, though the 3rd floor balcony was slightly opened. It would be hard to climb up here, but getting down should be a different thing. A copy of an old newspaper caught the niece's eye. It had half-solved crossword puzzle, but more importantly, an unknown number written on the side. It was a desperate move, but as the officers searched the apartment, the niece called it. After a brief conversation, she felt defeated. It's just a neighbor from the village, where her aunt had a garden house. He talked to her aunt a few days ago. They discussed what to do with the trees that were planted too close, but he doesn't know anything about the aunt's disappearance. The police, of course, did not let it show, but the niece and the husband were the main suspects, at least for now. There are no break-in marks, so the assailant must know the victim. Furthermore, it doesn't seem like a robbery, so if anything is stolen, the person probably knew what and where to look. No break-in marks, police officer thought, but you can't hide everything, even if you think you're smarter than the police. And they were right. After checking the ins and outs of this apartment, there are blood marks, but the blood marks on their own isn't that bad. What gives the officers the green light to launch a full investigation? These marks were clearly cleaned, and quite intensely. Someone has scrubbed clean this apartment before the police arrived. But if it was the niece, why would she give all these random details? The cat, the towels. Why not just say that the aunt just disappeared? The police then didn't know that Valeria, she had a guest that previous day. They drank tea together, talked a bit about this and that, but also that this person was responsible for her disappearance. However, the officers were in for a surprise they really didn't want to get. Look, you see? He's taking the taxi here, right? And he gets off here. The police were tracking every camera and every info they could find. One thing was clear. Valeria has not left her apartment. Neighbors, closed business, no one has seen her or heard anything from her. The only answer is foul play. But who's the culprit? "Do you think this is it?" asked one officer. "I don't know, but he did walk into this yard with a bag and walked out with it being empty, a clear sign of getting rid of evidence." As the morning light began to shine, a lot of people going to work watched the police rummaging through their trash near their house. What could they be searching for? And it's not just one police officer. This looked like a whole investigation. Bingo! They found what they were after. Valeria's documents, all tangled up, lied at the bottom of a trash can. Now, there is no doubt. The man they are following is responsible for Valeria's disappearance. But how? And why? One of the officers was about to call his colleague when he noticed something else. There was a document of another woman. Wait, there was no information about another missing woman, but these documents can't be here by mistake. Now, the police needed to act quickly. They might be dealing with a serial killer. Who knows how many other women have disappeared in Kaunas. While a few officers go to check on this woman's apartment, the others are calling her relatives. And in a surprise twist of fate, the woman's son is also a police officer working in Kaunas. But there's a problem. He speaks to his mother very rarely, mostly just come to pay taxes once a month. The thought crosses police officer's mind. This woman might be missing for a long time, and after knocking on her door, that thought seemed to become real. No one was answering, but yet again, there was no sign of a break-in or struggle, at least on the front door. Since there are no signs of struggle, the police just can't break down the door. They have to wait for the son to arrive. After an hour or so, he finally unlocks the doors, and this case begins to take a different shape. If Valeria's apartment was relatively clean, here, there are clear signs of foul play. Things are thrown on the floor, there is trash everywhere, and most importantly, blood-soaked objects, water faucets, a few clothes. This apartment was also clean. But here, it was like a work of amateur. Police officers had no doubt that these two cases were connected, not only due to the fact that both women's documents were in the same trash container, but mainly here as well. The towels were missing. And even worse, there was no body, no signs of where the hell both women could be. One police officer returned from neighbors. Yep, their hunch has proven right. This woman shared the same neighbor as Valeria, Karolis, Neoras. 2 women, 2 apartments, 1 neighbor. Now, the police needs to understand a man that thinks he's better than them. But, in reality, he's just a loser who watched too many CSI. So, what actually happened here? Based on all the information and data collected during the investigation, on January 26th, Karolis called Valeria to, as he said, talk about some garden work that needs to be done. What police think is that this call was meant to sort of assess whether Veronica was alone and at what time she would be home. It wasn't about robbing these women, even though Karolis stole passports, valuable things, and money. But if he wanted to only do that, he could easily do that while the women were away, or even just knocking them out. But Karolis wanted to hurt them. Karolis wanted to kill. Later on, Karolis came to her apartment and asked to talk about those garden works. As they sat in the living room eating some fruits, Karolis went to the toilet. Well, that was only an excuse. Now the fact is, no one actually knows what happened next. The victims' bodies has never been recovered. The murder weapon has never been found, and by the amount of blood found in both locations, it was difficult to determine whether he strangled them, whether he used a knife or a bludgeoning object. No one knows where the bodies are, so even now, the victims' families can't even give them a proper funeral. The police actually believed that Karolis, before killing Veronica, first killed the younger 62-year-old Niol. Apart from the evidence, the reason to believe that was Karolis' spite for his neighbor and how both apartments looked. In Valeria's case, it seemed planned. The apartment had no struggle signs and it was meticulously cleaned. It was a cold-blooded killing. in order to satisfy his twisted needs, as well as stealing what he can. But in Neoras' case, the crime scene showed signs of aggression, a much more violent attack, and the whole apartment had blood marks, even if Karolis tried to remove the evidence. It wasn't just about the killing. Karolis simply hated Neoras. A good way to understand Karolis' mind is to look at a few interviews conducted with the detectives. At the time, 22 years old Karolis Neoras was a law student who had completed 2 years of study. However, due to financial issues, he had taken an academic break. His family described him as quiet, somewhat odd, and socially isolated. He had done well in school, mostly top grades, and even scored over 80% in his final exams. Karolis himself spoke openly about his struggles with insomnia. Most nights, he would stay up watching shows or surfing the web.
I'd browse sites like Delphi, Alkas, and Wikipedia. I'm curious about almost everything, except math and physics. When I couldn't sleep, I'd binge watch TV shows like Hannibal, Arrow, Desperate Housewives, and Dexter.
I guess we know where he gets his inspirations from. He claimed he had been haunted by obsessive thoughts since childhood. As early as primary school, he said he would sometimes feel a compulsion to hurt others.
I had friends up until 5th grade. Back then, I was a normal.
He explained.
Then I became too consumed by my own thoughts. Imagine talking to someone, and suddenly a voice in your head says they're eating your brain. I never told anyone because I just got used to it. I had thousands of intrusive thoughts. Imagine sitting quietly at home and suddenly thinking the police bust in. It all ends in a chase, in blood. Or imagine wanting to throw your dog out of the window, push your mom out, kill your mom, your grandma, your neighbors. These thoughts would just come for no reason.
While he never confessed to killing his neighbor, he openly admitted that he despised her. The woman had reportedly kept her TV blaring for days on end, forcing Karolis to move to another room.
I can feel hatred towards someone equal to me,
he said.
But contempt, that's reserved for people beneath me. She earned it. The noise, the mess, water leaking from the apartment, it ruined my grandma's walls with mold.
Despite his denials, the evidence against Karolis was compelling. Blood from both the missing women's and Karolis himself was found at the scenes. On the day of the murder, he even called his grandma from the victim's phone. I tried calling his number, but he didn't answer. His grandmother recalled. I tried calling back, but no one answered. He didn't return until the next morning. After the murder, Karolis returned to the scene in an attempt to destroy evidence. He even bought a 400-watt forensic lamp used to detect biological traces. But he wasn't as clever as he thought. He left plenty behind. He later mocked the investigation, admitting to making mistakes but blaming the police officers for being incompetent.
Sure, I cut my finger, got some blood everywhere. You can't control everything. But the investigators, they don't know how to investigate.
Throughout the investigation and physical evaluation, Karolis offered ever-changing stories and motives. Sometimes he claimed to remember everything, technically, while other times he said he blacked out.
You need to understand who she was,
he once said.
Her place was a dump. The smell, the filth, alcohol, tobacco, the noise, she drove me insane.
To clarify his mental state, 2 separate psychiatric evaluations were conducted. Both concluded that Karolis was fully capable of understanding his action and was fit to stand trial. The experts noted that he attempted to fake mental illness and consistently shifted blame on the victims, showing a complete lack of remorse.
One morning, the idea came to me,
Karolis said.
At first, it was just a skeleton of a thought. Then it grew until it became something I had to do. Strangely, everything went perfectly. Nobody saw or heard anything. I didn't even try to hide, but the images developed in my head for a long time.
He described another murder in a similarly vague terms, claiming to remember every technical detail. When questioned by investigators, he claimed he had randomly found plastic bags in his car containing Valeria's documents and a saw. As for how these objects got there, he had no idea. Karolis' words were,
When I saw it all, my guts twisted from fear and excitement. I knew those things shouldn't have been in my car. At first, I thought maybe I had just robbed her. But then I saw the saw and thought maybe I had killed her. The saw was clean, but I thought I might have cut her up. I mean, if you find a saw and someone else's stuff and you don't remember anything, it's just logical to assume, right?
Nah, not right, Karolis. Unless you're really, really effed in the head. Normal people don't think that. Normal people don't do that. And actually, normal people don't talk like they have a stick up their ass and they're trying to pretend like they're the Dexter while looking like this. I'm sorry to attack his looks, but wow, dude. Throughout the trial, Karolis kept changing his story.
I don't have to prove anything,
He told the court.
The prosecutor is the one who have to prove I'm guilty.
He refused to say any final words, didn't appeal the verdict.
I am and always will be right.
He declared.
I've decided not to explain anything because only guilty people explain themselves.
Man, Karolis thinks that he's playing like 4D chess, but he doesn't even know how to play checkers. Jesus Christ. He mocked investigators constantly, even when reading transcripts of his own interrogation.
This text is completely incoherent.
He sneered.
I don't speak like this. It's distortion, a stretch.
The relatives of the victims even brought in psychics. Yes, actual psychics. They drew a map where they believed the bodies were hidden. Sadly, nothing. Zero, not even a trace of where the bodies could be. On December 19, the Kaunas Regional Court delivered its verdict: life in prison for Karolis Neoras. The court found that he had deliberately chosen his victims. Both women were single, lived alone, and were his neighbors. It was premeditated. First, he stole their personal documents and financial assets. Then, he tried to erase all evidence. One victim's body, they believed, was dismembered and hidden somewhere. Again, no remains have ever been found up to this day. That's what kind of haunts me the most. These kind of cases where killers hold all the answers and refuse to speak. This shit keeps me up at night. I like to believe psychics could help, but clearly even they couldn't find the truth here. Thank you for watching this video till the end. I'd like to hear your thoughts about this or similar cases where bodies have never been found. Or share your ideas on how we could pull this information from monsters like these. If psychics can help, maybe lie detector test, maybe truth potion, maybe torture, I don't know. Nothing seems to work. Anyway, if you liked the video, why not click the like button or even subscribe to the channel for more weird stories. Thank you again for your time, and I'll see you later.